CNN and the Trump campaign aren't the only ones having ad trouble these days, as many companies are learning the hard way when you combine the haphazard placement of online ads with the open sewer of the internet. Even respectable news organizations can find their brands in the company of some pretty odious content. The Holocaust was a false flag operation perpetrated by Jews. Or how about the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax created by the Newtown School Board and a local newspaper. That mind rot is what you'll find at a website called Veterans Today. But you might also find an ad for the Boston Globe, right across from language so vile we can't show it. The Washington Post and other news organizations have had similar issues. The problem is being blamed on Google, Yahoo, and other services that place online ads. Some companies like AT&T and Verizon have grown so frustrated they've pulled out of Google's ad network. Google admits there's a problem and is looking to better protect advertisers from hateful, offensive, and derogatory content. In the meantime, better keep an eye on the company you keep. So, Dan, you called this to our attention in the first place. I'm not exactly clear how this works, and can the Boston Globe do anything about it?
Yeah, they can. Now, by the way, I think that in this particular case, the Globe is working with a vendor. I don't know the name of them, but I don't think it's Google's fault in this particular case. Yeah, the vendor that the Globe is working with could build in some search terms or something to filter it so that an ad like this doesn't end up on hate sites.
But can't they say where they want the ad to go?
Well, there's thousands and thousands and
right.
thousands. There's and by the same token, there's too many where they don't want it to go.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a little bit like whack-a-mole. I mean, one pops up, you knock it down, and three more come up. But certainly, this is a site that the Globe's vendor ought to filter out.
Isn't this also, though, a case of these cookies that are built in, that it's following the user, right? So if you have certain places that you go, then those ads pop up. Do they just pop up for you, or they pop up on the site in general?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think that...
you're right. They would just pop up for
because
you.
I'm a Boston Globe subscriber.
However, it should be if you're not a Boston Globe subscriber, because they want you to subscribe. But if the vendor that the Globe is working with has filtered out that particular site, then it shouldn't pop up no matter what when you visit that site.
But it seems like what we're fighting against here is the machine algorithms, and that's kind of what drives a lot of it. In the past, you used to have people really deciding, for the most part, this is where this should go. Let's take this down. Now it's really up to the algorithm. And yes, there is some oversight, but I think that's the big issue here.
There's no perfect algorithm, and we actually encountered this when I was editor at New Boston Post, and it's more of a problem for small startups like we were than for a bigger organization like the Boston Globe, whose name is relatively well known. If you're trying to get your name out there, you depend on these algorithms to place your stories and your sites on other people's websites, and sometimes they do end up, we had to call a couple of times, nothing as vile as that. But we had to call a couple of times about places where our stories were showing up and ask that they be taken down as ads, and vice versa. There were ads populating our site that we found somewhat offensive, mostly just vulgar, sort of Hollywood, titillating stuff. But we had to ask that it be taken down because it wasn't in keeping with our policies. And it was very hard. Even when they claimed to be changing the algorithm, things would still come through once in a while. And so as an editor, you had to be vigilant and check that.
Well, what's interesting to me is it seems that the groups that are just loving the fact that they are next to the Boston Globe are working against them. They want the algorithm that puts that content next to them, so they can either for shock value or maybe randomly recruit somebody who didn't know they wanted to be recruited. So that to me is, I don't know how you deal with that end of it, because they're pushing just as hard to be sitting right next to a Boston Globe ad.
By the way, it's possible. I don't think we checked, but it's possible that the Globe has already taken care of this.
Because you told me that
because several of us have been trying to get it to pop up in recent days and haven't been able to.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah, they probably
good they did.